Report London. Analysts predict Bitcoin could go to 200,000K this year. The US stablecoin bill clears the Senate. The UK economy shrunk in April. Brazil is contemplating its own Bitcoin reserve. All that plus news on the AI front and more today on the Roxom Report London. I'm Ione Butler and welcome to the Roxom Report London. We're coming to you live from our studio in the UK's capital. Today we have a special guest joining us, Walton. How you doing, Walton?
You want the money that none can extort. They call it FU money. Each one can retort. Run your own node. 833's the B port. Walton live mode on the Roxom Report.
Hey! Yes.
How
Thank you. Good. We were talking about bringing back the wrapping Bitcoin.
You may have mentioned it, so I thought, why not?
Thank you, and surprising me with it too. I love that.
It's a pleasure to be here. In this beautiful studio.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great to have you. Finally making it work. We tried to get Susie in yesterday, but due to some technical issues, it took a minute. But here we are, doing our first live from the studio with our live guest.
Very exciting.
We're going to be speaking to you a lot on the Roxom Report. So I'd love it if you could just share with the audience just a little bit about yourself, share your story, how you came to Bitcoin. Like, what's been your journey? Lots of questions.
Few questions.
Tell us who you are.
So, my thing in Bitcoin is that there are lots of people building incredible things, but they aren't necessarily the people that have the marketing skills or the voices or the platforms to be able to show these incredible things to the masses. And so I try and help with a little bit of that. I think if we look at the world of shitcoins, it's all marketing and draws a lot of eyes to no substance. You could argue the reverse is true in Bitcoin because there is so much substance, so many great projects being built. I don't mean tokens. I mean apps or protocols that involve Bitcoin. There are so many great things being built. They need more attention, and I do my best to try and get attention to where it's needed.
I like that. What are there any particular products that you are marketing right now? And is it kind of like a marketing background that you come from? Is that sort of how you bring your skill set to this? What are the types of things?
No,
that you do?
I'm from an education background, and so there are. I connect well with some great technical minds, but I'm also able to talk to people who are less technical, and I think I've come to Bitcoin. I've been in Bitcoin at a time when that bridging is helpful. There are people who want to learn more technical things about Bitcoin who don't speak the same language as some of the people that have created that technology or who are writing about that technology, and maybe who don't have time to try and translate for other people.
I do think that's important, that the education, and if there is going to be global adoption, helping people understand. There was a big, I remember back in the day when Bitcoin, I can't even remember what it was. It was something very nominal, and I had a ton of friends saying, buy Bitcoin. And I was just like, yeah, sure. I have no idea how to do it, and then just didn't. And so I think it is important for people like you just to help make it understandable, help people get involved, help people use it, so yeah.
I think I think it's easy to be scared about how to use Bitcoin, but it is one of those things where there is a phenomenal network of Bitcoiners that will help you along in wherever you are in your journey of technical education. With Bitcoin, you can have full sovereignty, but with full sovereignty comes full responsibility.
Indeed, yeah. How did you? How did you come to know of Bitcoin? What was your journey?
So people talk about maybe often 3 touch points that you need to have before you adopt Bitcoin. I had friends using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange in 2011 to 2013. I then heard about it during the 2017 bull run from like a random person at a music festival, and then I was sitting next to someone at a Patriots Dolphins game in Miami, third row corner of the end zone, and this other Patriots fan next to me was hopping up and down about Bitcoin, and then I first bought it in the bear market of 2018 after a friend explained to me that it's basically the only one that's independently verifiably scarce for the masses.
So it was still a little while after those three touch points, and then
2017, 2018. Like I wasn't going to buy it in the bull market of 2017 because I'm not a gambler. So I think there's kind of broadly two groups of people that come to Bitcoin, or rather what attracts them to Bitcoin first, and the timing is important. People that come during the bull market are typically higher risk people who are slightly more prone to gambling, that then maybe work out that gambling isn't the way to actually advance their wealth, and they can do it in a safer way with Bitcoin. And then you get people that, like myself, who are, I think, savers that can't save in fiat, and so are at a bit of a loss as to what to do until you understand that Bitcoin is something you can save in.
What are your thoughts then? So do you recommend that people buy in?
I recommend that people
dip?
learn about Bitcoin.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the best critics of Bitcoin become Bitcoiners.
Advice I was given by a friend who sold a bunch of Bitcoin when it was at 100. I asked him, what advice would you give to your younger self? And he was like, don't have sold the Bitcoin. But he's obviously come back and has bought more since. His advice always is to dollar cost average, just kind of sort of buy in over periods of time. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I say smash by the dips, dollar cost averaging. I mean, ultimately, all of these things are a trade. People say dollar cost averaging is you're then not trading. No, all of these things are some sort of plan for how you're trading. And I think when you buy Bitcoin, or when you buy and sell Bitcoin, or when you buy and spend Bitcoin, is very much a personal decision, and some people should smash buy more than DCA, in part because their cash flow is more appropriate for that. If you have variable income, then smash buying is going to be more natural.
So I think overall it's like, do your research and do what's right for you. I think that's what we can both agree on.
Yeah, it's a tool that can help your personal finances, but ultimately you have responsibility for your personal finances.
Indeed. Excellent. All right. Well, let's get on with the show. We're going to get into news, and we're kicking things off with the most crucial piece of Bitcoin news you need for today. This is Top of the Block.
Okay.
There it is. Well, here's a number that's turning heads in the crypto world. $200,000. That's the price one analyst now believes Bitcoin could reach by the end of this year. And the reason might surprise you. It all comes down to inflation, or more precisely, the recent lack of it. This week's US Consumer Price Index came in cooler than expected, rising just 0.1% in May, below the 0.2% forecast. Durable goods prices actually declined, despite ongoing tariff concerns. So far, consumers haven't felt much impact, but for markets, this shift is significant. And according to Matt Mainer of 21 Shares, one of the world's largest crypto ETP providers, this could be the moment that propels Bitcoin into a full-scale rally. Mainer sees a potential breakout if Bitcoin clears the 105 to 110,000 range. From there, a sprint to 120,000, possibly 138,000 by summer, and yes, 200,000 by December. Now, to be clear, it's an aggressive forecast, but not without basis. Traders are already pricing in 2 potential Fed rate cuts this year, possibly starting in September. That would mean lower borrowing costs, a softer dollar, and historically, a favorable environment for assets like Bitcoin. And that's just one piece of the puzzle. Institutional interest is gaining momentum. There's talk of strategic Bitcoin reserve programs at the state level. Stablecoin regulation is finally taking shape, and a fresh wave of ETF inflows may just be around the corner. In other words, Bitcoin may be entering its macro moment. After years on the fringe of finance, it's now being taken seriously as a potential cornerstone in global portfolios. Of course, no price target is ever certain, especially in crypto. But the building blocks are there: cooling inflation, greater Fed flexibility, and rising institutional adoption. So whether you've been holding on to Bitcoin for years or just watching from the sidelines, this could be a defining stretch. Because in this kind of environment, Bitcoin doesn't just belong, it performs. Ooh, exciting stuff. Walton, what do you think? Hitting 200,000 by December? Is it possible?
I mean, I've been hearing Max Kaiser say 220K by conference day for, I don't know, 6 years already.
When's conference day, sorry?
Exactly. Like each Bitcoin conference each year, right? We had, in 2021, Odell was calling for $1 million Bitcoin. So all these numbers are pointless. To me, it's kind of short term, right? You should be buying Bitcoin and holding it for a long time. I think if you're here for 10%, 20% gains, yeah, enjoy. But I think you should just hold it for many, many years and let it 10x or more.
I think it's agreed. I do think that's the best strategy. It does seem like the tides are changing, are turning. You know, there's been with everything going on in the US, with Trump, with countries wanting to have Bitcoin as part of their, Federal Reserve. There are huge, big changes. You know, now institutions are all trying to jump on the bandwagon. It does feel like this is a wave that is coming, unlike anything has come before. So I do think
there
it
are
has
more
potential.
institutions.
Yeah.
There are certainly. And it's funny because a few years ago, everyone on Bitcoin Twitter was excited for all the companies to be adopting Bitcoin, and now all the companies are adopting Bitcoin, and people don't like it. I think really
Why?
what people don't.
Tell me. Yeah, why?
Because ultimately, companies putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet and then selling equity are printing money. It's a way of holding the Bitcoin and giving someone some less desirable asset, and you have control over how much of that asset exists with equity. With Bitcoin, you don't, right? To print Bitcoin has the same cost for everyone and energetically. But is it a good thing? I think it is. I think it is a good thing, and whether you think it's a good thing or not, though, it's happening, right? People are adopting Bitcoin. Companies are adopting Bitcoin. States are adopting Bitcoin. Is it a good thing that states are adopting Bitcoin? Some people say that Bitcoin is about separating money and state. Eric Kaysen says, Eric Kaysen is not a huge fan of the state, right? There are extremes of opinion.
It's a hard one because
I don't know if I go as far as saying fuck the state. The state still exists. They're I don't know where you're going to live.
How do we get to mass adoption if? Well, yeah, it's a complicated dichotomy of.
And in different places it's bottom up. Some places it's top down.
Yeah.
I think it should be bottom up. It should be people choosing to adopt Bitcoin. It should be a voluntary thing rather than it being forced on people. But when we look at all of this institutional buying, where do they buy from? Do they buy and then take it into self-custody? Or do they buy and then leave it with the exchange or some other custodian? And then what happens to that Bitcoin? I think we're in the era of institutions, but we're also, I think, in an era of paper Bitcoin.
Yeah, it does feel like the whole point of it is kind of being undermined a little bit when we're talking about states adopting it and regulating it. It's like, well, doesn't that sort of defeat the point? But yeah, it's a confusing time. I don't think as many people are. I don't think self-custody is as big for most sort of new people coming into it, especially.
But I mean, for the institutions, if they're buying lots of Bitcoin, they need to prove to themselves that they actually own the Bitcoin and they're not being double sold or triple sold the Bitcoin by custodians who aren't meant to be doing that.
I think that goes back to the point that you made, excuse me, about doing your research and understanding it. I think that's a very important part of it. Excellent. Okay. Well, we will be right back after a short break with a check at the market watch.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's take a quick look at how the markets are moving right now. Starting with European stocks, we have French's CAC 40. Can we expand that a little bit so I can see a little bit more? That's at 7,719, down almost 0.75%. Thank you. The DAX Performance Index at 23,676, down 1.14%. The FTSE 100 here in the UK at 8,860. That's down just slightly. And Spain's IBEX 35, 14,018. That's down almost 1% today. Let's have a look at how US stocks are performing right now. Dow Jones. Oh, things are just a little bit down. 42,865. Nasdaq Composite, 19,615, down 0.5%. S&P 500 sitting at 6,022, down almost just over 0.25%. Coinbase, down 1.67%. MicroStrategy, 387, down 1%. Nvidia Corp at 142. Don't know what the movement there is on Nvidia Corp, but we'll find out later. And Tesla Inc. at 326, sort of slowly moving up. And moving on to Bitcoin, price sitting at around 1,007.58. Right now. That's down 1.48% today. Looking a little bit more, digging a little bit deeper into the Bitcoin world. Let's see what we can talk about this. It's currently trading, like I said, at 1,007.62. It's experienced a 1.48% decrease over the last 24 hours. The price range has gone from highs of 110,277 to lows of 107,491. So not too much volatility yet in the last 24 hours. So despite initial optimism following a cooler than expected US inflation report, Bitcoin's price faced downward pressure due to a subsequent market correction. Okay. We're talking about the Bitcoin sentiment. It's hit a 7-month high, so bullish sentiment on social media has surged as Bitcoin repeatedly nears its all-time high of 112,000. The positive to negative comment ratio on platforms like X and Reddit reached 2.12, the highest since November 2024. Okay, next up, we are moving on to the Global Gist, where we share stories from around the world. Let's go to the Global Gist. Sorry, that was a quick shit. Sorry, my bad. We hadn't. A major shift is unfolding in Washington this week, one that could reshape how crypto operates in the US. For the first time, the United States Senate is moving towards passing a comprehensive crypto bill, specifically one focused on regulating stablecoins. These are digital tokens pegged to the US dollar, like USDC or Tether, and they're quietly becoming essential infrastructure in the global crypto economy. Until now, though, there's been no clear legal framework for how they're issued or overseen. The bill, called the Genius Act, just cleared a key procedural vote in the Senate with broad bipartisan support, 68 to 30. That's significant. It means lawmakers across the aisle are recognizing that the US needs clear, enforceable rules, not just to protect consumers, but to maintain leadership in a fast-moving global financial system. If passed, the Genius Act would allow stablecoins to be issued under either state or federal supervision, and even open the door for some non-financial companies to issue them. That last point has raised concerns, especially from Senator Elizabeth Warren, who warned the bill lacks safeguards and could expose the financial system to unnecessary risks. But most of her colleagues, including many Democrats, see this as a crucial step forward. Meanwhile, over in the House, momentum is building behind another important bill, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act. That one's aimed at broader crypto market oversight, and it cleared 2 key committees this week with overwhelming support. So, what happens next? The House has to decide whether to vote on the Genius Act as it stands or combine it with their own legislation. Either way, the message is clear. US crypto policy is finally entering a new phase, one that could bring real structure and credibility to the space. And if both bills make it to the president's desk, it would mark the most significant crypto legislation ever passed in the United States. Okay, I heard some chuckles coming from you over there, Walton. Would love to hear your thoughts on that news there.
Yeah. So,
what was it that made you chuckle? It was specifically the Elizabeth Warren's concerns.
Yeah, I mean, as per usual, those that have control over the current financial system want to maintain their power over the current financial system. Stablecoins are about advancing dollar hegemony across the world. But it is actually under the kind of overwatch of the US. I think USDC is already heavily regulated, which is Circle, right? A US company, and USDT Tether is not a US company, but they hold a lot of US treasuries. So this is about maintaining financial control. I don't think it has all that much to do with Bitcoin directly. If anything, it's one of the few things that could be bad for Bitcoin if people try and put more and more stable coins on top of Bitcoin, because then that leads it brings regulatory attention that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I just want to get your take on whether you thought that it would be a positive or negative. So you don't think that if this legislation passed, Bitcoin might rally even higher?
It might rally, but is it good for Bitcoin? Those aren't necessarily the same thing. So like I feel like I often get asked questions by family members, how's Bitcoin doing? And they mean, how's the price doing? And Bitcoin is not the price. Bitcoin is a global open monetary network where people are able to make censorship resistant payments without intermediaries and custodians, and that's what is under attack with more and more financialization of things close to Bitcoin by traditional finance.
Yeah. I like what you say there, because I think a lot of people, I think there's 2 camps. There's people like yourself that kind of see Bitcoin as a whole and what it's capable of and the ethos behind it. And then there's a lot who just see sort of price being the main driver and the kind of main thing that's important. And that's a good point you make, that when you're asking how things with Bitcoin, that bigger question, I think, is...
They're more linked, those than I think a lot of people understand. If you look at, say, gold over the last 50 years, 7 or more, you could say it's kind of failed. It hasn't quite been the inflation hedge that people thought it could be. And why? It failed because the gold itself gets centralized with custodians, and they sell paper gold in far excess of the actual gold that exists. And if people don't buy and self-custody Bitcoin, if they're holding proxies for Bitcoin, if they're holding paper Bitcoin, maybe the price of real Bitcoin doesn't go up that as much, because you've diluted it with paper. Mm-hmm. It's like FTX in the last cycle. Whether cycles exist or not, we'll park that for another time. But FTX, I think, suppressed the price because had they been buying the Bitcoin that they actually should have been in order to hold what they should have had for their customers, there would have been more buy pressure, and the price therefore would be higher. And yeah, now a whole bunch of regulated institutions are, to some degree, being given permission to do some degree what some of these crypto hedge funds were doing before. So we'll see.
Yeah,
we
will indeed. How will it play out?
I'm very bullish long term, but
yes,
in the short term, it's going to be chaotic.
Yeah. Okay. According to the latest figures from the Office for National Statistics, that's a mouthful. Statistics, there it is. Britain's GDP shrank by 0.3% in April. That's worse than expected. Analysts were bracing for a slight dip of 0.1%. And it follows a period of modest growth earlier this year. So yes, after a decent first quarter, the second has kicked off with what economists are calling rather grimly, awful April. So what happened? A few things hit all at once. Domestically, businesses were facing higher costs from national insurance hikes and an increase in the minimum wage, both of which took effect in early April, just as companies were still finding their feet. And then there's the global picture. The US, under Donald Trump's headline-grabbing Liberation Day tariffs, hit British exports hard. In fact, April saw the biggest drop in UK good exports to the US on record, according to the ONS. That's not just car parts and tech, it's across the board. For Chancellor Rachel Reeves, the timing couldn't be worse. Just a day after unveiling her spending review, she's been handed this sobering update. Her big pitch? Growth. And a stronger economy means better public finances, less debt, and ideally more money in people's pockets. But that mission just got harder. To her credit, Reeves isn't flinching. She called the numbers disappointing, but insists the government's plan for change will deliver growth. Economists, however, are much more cautious. The ICAEW's Surin Thu says this could be the start of a more sobering period, with rising costs and global uncertainty likely to weigh heavily on growth, even with increased public spending. So what does this all mean? April's numbers may not be the full-on crisis, but they are a warning shot and a reminder that turning around an economy is rarely in a straight line, especially when the world keeps throwing curveballs. So, Walton, thoughts on that? With these numbers, the economy, the growth being 0.3, these small changes, like, what are your thoughts on this?
There is no bigger lie than CPI. There is no bigger lie than CPI. What am I talking about? The numbers that are quoted for inflation are fabricated.
What's the basis of that? Tell me
based
why
on like a basket of goods, and if something starts getting too expensive, they just take it out of the basket and swap in something else, and then say, oh, well, then the price of this basket didn't really change, but that's because we changed what's in the basket. If you put in things like TVs which fall in price, and take out things like red meat, you can convince people that inflation's not as bad as it actually is, but I don't know. I think a lot of people over the last couple of years especially have felt a significant increase to their costs, right? You go, how can inflation be some single digit percentage when my food costs have gone up 20, 30, 50% in the last 2 years? How can you say that inflation's this number of percent when fuel costs have gone up, when energy costs have gone up? It's way more than the numbers that get quoted. But everyone knows this, and I think this is part of the late state propaganda of you lie to people, and you kind of don't even care that you're lying. And everyone knows that it's a lie, and it's dehumanizing. I think it further breaks people's contract with society, and I think it drives less cohesion at a time when maybe you need it, more than ever.
But are you surprised by the fact that the UK economy hasn't grown as much as they had anticipated or predicted?
No, the Labour government's plan to grow the economy was we'll consult regulators on how we can tighten belts. Like they have no idea what they're doing. They have no idea what they're doing. But in fairness, I don't think many governments in the Western world have much space to go, right? We're in a better position, I think, than the US are right now. If you look at the percentage of the national tax income that gets spent on the interest on debt repayments, we're not doing as bad as the US. We're not doing great, but it's Japan's further ahead, right? Like this, all of these countries are essentially spiraling around a economic black hole, and the tools that central banks and governments use to mitigate some of the things that they don't want, then cause the other things in greater extremes. And so what I mean by this is, okay, the inflation's not very much. What they mean is people aren't spending, and we need people to spend. So how do you make people spend? Well, then you drop rates, you enable more borrowing, and people start spending more money that they don't have, that they borrowed, and the prices go up, and then things get more expensive, and then what do they do? Well, then they go the other way, and then that causes companies to cut people's jobs, and then people start actually dying, right? Like there are governments and central banks know that if you change rates by this much, you can basically cause X thousands or tens of thousands of people to die, because it's downstream of the economics of which they're not in control of. We have a heavily manipulated economy. Many people think these are free markets, and they couldn't be much further from them.
Oof, yeah. Wow. It's pretty grim.
I don't think it is grim, because we have Bitcoin. We have Bitcoin. There is a nice big orange lifeboat. You don't have to like if so I can't think who said this. It might be someone said that Bitcoin is essentially a bet that governments will continue to fuck up, like and central banks, and like I don't know. Is there more to it than that? Are you betting on like on humanity? Yeah, sure. But you're also hedging against a lot of centralized incompetence and or malice.
Tell me what would be like in an ideal world for you. Explain Bitcoin's place in an ideal world where financial systems are the way that you would like them to be. Do you have like a vision for that? Is there a clear vision? Does everybody have a slightly different take on what that would look like?
So I think you mean like can Bitcoin restore integrity to markets? Maybe. One thing I noted when you were looking at the changes in the prices on MarketWatch were, well, we're looking at things in dollars or in pounds. And I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. And we talk about, Bitcoin's changing in price. No, Bitcoin's one Bitcoin, and things move relative to Bitcoin. And it's a kind of a weird thing that took me a while to understand, but that really is what it is. Bitcoin is the real stablecoin. All these things that are called stablecoins are just like slowly melting digital dollars, right? Like it's, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with one more story from the Global Gist.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
Welcome back to our last segment of news from around the world. It's the Global Gist. Now, this one is about Brazil is edging closer to making Bitcoin an official part of its national reserves. A new bill just received a green light from the Economic Development Committee. And while it's still early days, this could be a turning point for how countries treat crypto at the sovereign level. The bill introduced by Federal Deputy Eros Bondini proposes something Brazil's never done before, creating a national Bitcoin reserve called Resbit. It would allow the country to allocate up to 5% of its foreign exchange reserves, real money, real policy, into Bitcoin. Why? Well, according to Luis Gasteo, the person leading the bill, it's all about diversification. In a world where fiat currencies are subject to inflation, political tensions, and external shocks, Bitcoin is being framed here as a strategic hedge, a way for Brazil to reduce its reliance on traditional assets and respond more flexibly to global risks. This isn't a free-for-all. The plan puts the central bank and the Ministry of Finance in charge, with a clear mandate to follow strict security protocols. Think cold wallets, blockchain monitoring, and biannual transparency reports to Congress, audited and fully documented. In other words, Brazil wants to treat Bitcoin not like an experiment, but like a serious financial instrument. Now, to be clear, this bill isn't law yet. It still needs to pass through other key committees, including those on technology, constitutional affairs, and finance. But if it makes it through, and there's growing momentum, Brazil could become only the second country in the world after El Salvador to legally enshrine a Bitcoin reserve. It's a big move for a major economy, and it signals something broader. We may be watching the early formation of a new global pattern, where Bitcoin starts moving from private portfolios to public balance sheets. I find that quite exciting. We're going to come to you quickly, Walton, just to share your thoughts.
So as all of these countries get into later and later stage of the state, shall we say, they all start printing money a bit more in secret. And so international trade becomes problematic because you can't trust other people's currencies as much. And so I think one thing that we will see, and this is whether you like it or not, is states adopting Bitcoin because it's the money that you can trust in international trade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it will be.
Yeah.
Walton, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. We'll have you back tomorrow, if not next week. That's it from us today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with more of the Roxom Report London. Take care.